don't think that I'm that good that I could come out here every day for 17 years and fool you. This is me. And my intention is to always be the best person I can be. And if I've ever let someone down, if I've ever hurt their feelings, I am so sorry for that.
Ellen DeGeneres built an entire empire on two simple words: be kind. For nearly 20 years, she danced her way into America's homes every afternoon, becoming a symbol of joy and generosity. She handed out cars to fans, embraced countless celebrities, and made millions of viewers laugh and smile through their screens. Her image was one of compassion and positivity, and she became one of the most beloved figures in entertainment. But in 2020, everything changed. Former employees began to come forward with shocking claims. They spoke of a toxic environment behind the cameras, a place filled with fear, bullying, and harassment. The woman who had preached kindness to the world was being accused of fostering a workplace ruled by intimidation, where even making eye contact with her could cost you your job. By 2022, the empire she had spent decades building was gone. The world was left to ask, what really happened behind those studio doors? The truth turned out to be far darker than anyone could have imagined. Ellen Lee DeGeneres was born on January 26, 1958, in Metairie, Louisiana. Her father, Elliot, worked as an insurance salesman, while her mother, Betty, was a real estate agent. From the outside, their home may have seemed ordinary, but inside, it was ruled by strict Christian Science beliefs. Her father served as the church's first reader, a role similar to that of a preacher, and he followed the religion's teachings with unyielding devotion. Their household had strict rules: no drinking, no smoking, no swearing, no medicine, and no outward displays of emotion. Even something as simple as taking aspirin was considered sinful. Ellen grew up in this tightly controlled world, never seeing a doctor until she was 13 years old. In her family's eyes, prayer was the only medicine anyone needed. If you were sick, it was simply because your faith wasn't strong enough. Ellen was taught to smile through pain and to pretend that everything was fine, even when it wasn't. Emotions were not something to express, they were something to suppress. Then came the year 1973. Ellen's parents decided to separate, and a year later, they officially divorced. She was just 15 years old when her family fell apart. Because of how emotionally closed off her household had always been, she never saw it coming. She once admitted that she had no idea her parents even had problems, because no one ever talked about their feelings. Christian Science had already stripped away her ability to form normal emotional connections, and the divorce shattered what little stability she had left. After the split, her mother, Betty, took Ellen and moved to Atlanta, Texas, while her older brother, Vance, stayed behind in Louisiana with their father. The family was fractured, each piece going in a different direction. As a teenager, Ellen was forced to grow up quickly. Her mother was deeply shaken by the divorce, and Ellen found herself stepping into the role of caretaker. Despite still being a kid, she tried to comfort her mother and hold their small household together. Ellen had always loved animals and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian, but her religion forbade belief in science or medicine. To be a vet, she'd have to embrace the very things her faith rejected. She was a naturally curious child, asking questions about how bodies worked and why things were the way they were. But curiosity was discouraged in her world. She learned to stay quiet, even when she saw contradictions between what adults said and what reality showed her. That silence, that constant need to suppress her thoughts, built up inside her for years. In 1976, her mother remarried a man named Roy Grissendorf, and the family settled into life in Atlanta, Texas. Ellen once again had to start over: a new home, a new stepfather, and a new school. Around that same time, tragedy struck when her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Betty had to undergo a mastectomy, meaning surgery and medical treatment, the very things their religion had long condemned. The family had no choice but to turn to the science they'd once rejected. The experience shattered their faith, and afterward, no one in the family spoke about it. The surgery, the fear, and even the recovery were buried under silence. Ellen, only 16 years old at the time, took on the responsibility of helping her mother heal. She assisted with her exercises, cared for her wounds, and became her emotional support system. The experience brought them closer, but it also forced Ellen to grow up far too soon. She was still a teenager, yet she was playing the role of a nurse, a caretaker, and a protector, all while trying to navigate school and the emotional wreckage of her home life. But just when things seemed like they couldn't get worse, they did. Ellen's stepfather, Roy, began abusing her. She was only 15 when it started. He told her he needed to check her breasts for lumps, pretending it was for medical reasons because of her mother's cancer. Using her innocence and fear, he manipulated her into silence. One night, he tried to break into her room, and in panic, Ellen kicked out a window and fled the house. She ran to safety and spent the night in a hospital just to feel secure. But even after that terrifying experience, she didn't tell anyone. She didn't fully understand what had happened to her, or that it wasn't her fault. For years, she carried the guilt and confusion alone, blaming herself for not stopping him. It wasn't until 2005, and again in 2019, that she opened up publicly about the abuse in hopes of helping others who had endured similar trauma. After graduating from Atlanta High School in 1976, Ellen enrolled at the University of New Orleans to study communications, but she dropped out after just one semester. Her parents' divorce had left her financially stranded, and she had to fend for herself. She worked a string of odd jobs to get by, first at a law office with her cousin Laura, then at JCPenney, followed by stints as a waitress at TGI Fridays, a house painter, bartender, and hostess. She did whatever she could to survive. The irony wasn't lost on her. The young woman who would one day be worth over $500 million was once living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to stay afloat. Her mother's illness had already shaken their faith to its core, but what made everything worse was the silence that surrounded it. No one talked about the mastectomy, or the emotions that came with it. Ellen was left to handle it all, taking care of her mother while pretending everything was normal. The contradictions between their religious beliefs and reality became too much for her to bear. That's when she turned her back on the religion completely. She became agnostic, walking away from the rigid rules that had defined her childhood. Her older brother, Vance, meanwhile, was carving out a very different path. Born in 1954, he was 4 years older than Ellen and had served in the Marine Corps before diving into the New Orleans music scene. In the late 1970s, he became a part of the city's underground rock movement, playing bass in a band called The Cold, which would later be inducted into the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame. He also hosted his own radio show. While Ellen struggled with trauma and poverty, Vance found purpose through creativity.